Okay, welcome back everybody. It's your girl Shadia and I am back with another video, and this video is going to be about the day I went to the hospital. Basically January 10th, 2005, and it's kind of like a part 2 because I never really kind of explained what happened after going to the hospital. I never really went into real detail, so I kind of want to do that today in this video. So if you are interested, stay tuned. Okay, so first, I want to begin with leaving school. That's where I want to start. I want to start with after my father took me to the hospital. So, when I arrived to the hospital, there was a gurney basically waiting for me. As soon as they saw my father pulled up, they came running out, they got me out of the car, and they put me on the gurney. They rushed me into the hospital. When I got into the hospital and I got into this big room, I saw a lot of white lights. And you know how sometimes in the movie when people are getting ready to die, they always see like the white lights? That's kind of how it felt. And the doctors and the nurses and everybody were asking me a bunch of questions. They were saying, are you pregnant? What is your name? Where do you live? And I'm thinking, really? My father couldn't have told you any of this? But I finally realized that they were basically asking me all of those questions because they wanted to see if I was coherent. And I was, thankfully. And so after that, I woke up the next morning and I was practically intubated. I had tubes completely down my throat. I could not speak, I could not talk, and I could not move. So at this point, I'm confused. And I asked my mother, basically, I'm like, Ma, what happened? She said, you're paralyzed. And because of the shock value of what had already happened, I was even more in shock when she said those words. And even though I knew what they meant, I was like, what does that mean? And she went into thorough detail, basically explaining to me what it meant. And I was like, wow. At this point, I was just really confused and still kind of in shock. Like, just thinking that this will get better. You know, I'm paralyzed, but it'll get better. And it won't take long for me to recover, basically. And that's just kind of how I thought at that time. And so, also, the doctors, they diagnosed me with transverse myelitis, but mind you, it took them almost 3 days to give me a diagnosis. And transverse myelitis is inflammation that is on both sides of your spinal cord, and it basically interrupts the messages that the spinal cord sends throughout the body or to the brain. So they thought that that's what happened to me, that I had transverse myelitis. But the thing about transverse myelitis is it usually reverses itself. And they thought, I can't remember how much time you have to give it before it reverses itself, but that's what transverse myelitis usually does. So here we are thinking, okay, we have a diagnosis, I have transverse myelitis, and we're just proceeding with that, trying to figure out what do we need to do now. So after my diagnosis, I was still in the ICU, which is intensive care unit. I was there for about a month, maybe 3 weeks, give or take. And I couldn't talk when I was there. I couldn't eat when I was there, and I couldn't move. So there was really nothing I could do at all. I could like move my head and things like that, but I couldn't move any of my body. And after being there for about the 3 weeks, they would feed me with a feeding tube. And the only thing I could eat was milk because my lungs had collapsed, and like I said, I was intubated. So there was no way I could eat anything through the mouth because they were afraid with my lungs being collapsed that it could go down wrong and I would choke. And so they were just being cautious. So I couldn't eat anything. Like I said, I was getting fed through a feeding tube. I could not drink anything. And a lot of the times when the nurses or anybody wanted to communicate with me, we would have to do it through this little alphabetical board. Basically spell out all of the words and then put the sentence together. But that was very arduous and difficult to do. So it really didn't work out that way. So a lot of people would just try their hardest to read my lips. But there was only one person that could read my lips, which was the boyfriend I had at that time. And when he wasn't there, it made communication even more difficult for everybody because nobody knew what I was saying. But everybody would always ask him, like, what did she say? What did she say? And he would just look at me and be like, oh, she said this. And so once he wasn't there, everybody's like, oh my God, I'm lost. What did she say? But we were still able to communicate. It just took a long time than we would have liked it to. And so being at the ICU, for me, it was really hard because I was always afraid, how will I call anybody if I can't talk, I can't move, I couldn't do anything that would help me be able to say, hey, I need help when the nurses are in another patient's room or whatever the case may be. So I developed this click. It's like I would click because that was like the only noise I was able to make for somebody to hear me or to know that I needed something. So when I would click, people would come to me like, oh, okay, she needs something. Other than that, I'm just laying there not able to move. So I developed a clicking sound, and when I made that noise, that's when people knew that I needed something. So after being in ICU for as long as I was, I ended up getting better. My blood pressure was getting better. The swelling was going down. I was picking up a little weight. So doctors felt that it was just time to transition me into rehab. And, oh, but before I go into the transition to rehab, I was diagnosed with transverse myelitis. Okay, so I went into rehab, and after I got to rehab was a lot different. It didn't seem as serious as ICU did because when you looked around, you didn't see a lot of machines, you didn't see a lot of tubes and wires and cords and things like that. You just saw like rooms, you saw colors, and I was able to get out of that room that I had been stuck in ICU for almost 3 to 4 weeks. So it was kind of exciting, but it was also a nerve-wracking feeling because I was leaving the people I knew, I was leaving the territory that I knew, and it was just already hard trying to adjust to another place when I still wasn't adjusting to the life that I was currently living at that time, which was being paralyzed and not being able to talk, eat, or move. But once I got to rehab, I was able to like get in the tub, and I was able to have a nice room, bring in a lot of decorations. My family decorated the room. I was able to actually start putting on clothes. I was able to get physical therapy and occupational therapy, and I had that every single morning, which was hard and strenuous because you go from having no strength to now trying to lift things with the little bit of movement that you do have. See if you can improve that movement by constantly doing your therapies and things like that. And so I had the therapy, and I also had a speech therapist who would come in to help me try and pass my swallowing test. But the funny thing is, during the meantime, I was already low-key eating food. My family would come in and they would have food, and they would sometimes feed it to me because I would literally beg. And at first they were afraid. They're like, no, you can't have anything. We don't want you to eat. We don't want you to choke. But I begged them, and I'm persuasive. And so eventually they ended up giving me like mashed potatoes, just things that were easy to swallow and would go down smoothly. And I took the swallowing test, I want to say 3 times. I took it the first time, I didn't pass. The second time, I didn't pass. But the third time, I did pass, and I was so thankful because I was so tired of not being able to eat. I used to only eat candy. Because all I could do was like suck on things and get the juices of it. But as far as solid foods, no, I could not eat that. And so I passed the swallowing test. And every day I would do my physical therapy and my occupational therapy. And eventually I was able to get into a wheelchair. When I first got into my wheelchair, the doctors only wanted to allow me an hour. And I think I went along with that probably for about 1 or 2 days. And afterwards I was like, no, I think I can withstand a lot more. And, they was like, okay, well, we'll give you some time and we'll just let you see what you can tolerate. If you can't tolerate it anymore, let us know. But I was able to tolerate being in my chair for a very long time. I wanted so badly to be in my wheelchair. I was tired of being bedridden. I was tired of being in the bed. I was tired of talking to people from the bed because, again, I had a lot of visitors, a lot of people from my school that came and showed me a lot of love, and, that was very special and sweet. And so I didn't want to talk to them lying down. It felt awkward. And so when I was finally able to get into my chair, I was very thankful because I was able to now sit up and be more alert when I spoke to people. And so I got into a wheelchair. I was able to tolerate that for a long time. And after that, my parents had to learn how to work the ventilator because doctors were like, well, you know, she's doing a great job. She's ready to transition going back home. And so my parents, they had to learn how to use a ventilator. And they did. They learned how to basically take care of me. They trained me on the vent, I want to say, for maybe 9 months. And they learned how to suction me. They learned how to take care of me like the nurses were. And I was, after that process, after they passed like the vent test, that was going to be the time I was going to be able to go home. And my parents, they did pass. But when it started getting time for me to go home, I was extremely nervous. I had anxiety, and even though this whole time I was in the hospital, because all I was screaming was, I want to go home. I want to go home. I'm ready to go home. When can I go home? It was literally like a prison sentence because I never had an out date. They never really told me when I was going to be able to go home. But once my parents passed the test to my ventilator, they were like, okay, we have a date. And so the day I was getting ready to go home, I was just, I don't know, honestly, I feel like I just felt numb. Because when I was in the rehab, I never wanted to leave my room. So I was literally stuck in a room for like 2 months. I never left that room. Eventually, once it came closer to me leaving, I left my room because my niece, she had a birthday, and they wanted her to be able to celebrate her birthday with me being there. So they had her birthday at the rehab. I left the room for that, and we went into like this big playroom. I ended up leaving my room. But other than that, like, I never wanted to leave my room. So when it was time for me to actually leave rehab, to actually have to go out in public, be seen, it was very scary and a scary process. But I want to say it was like March. I want to say it was either March 6th. I don't know why, but I feel like it was either March 16th or March 28th when I left the rehab. And I arrived at my house. And it just looked so foreign to me. It looked completely different. I hadn't been there in 3 months. And I'm just like, wow. I had now had a ramp built on in my house. The room that I have now, that used to be my father's little like man cave, that was now my room. It was completely different paint. My bed was in there. The ventilator that I was going to use was in there. Everything that I was going to use was in this room, and it just felt so awkward. It was just weird. But I got home, and I was able to sustain being at home and eventually getting used to being there. But when I was home, it was like, I want to go back to the hospital. It was just very, very odd. But needless to say, I got acclimated with being back in my home, and now I hate going to the hospital. So interestingly enough, so yeah, that's pretty much what happened when I went to the hospital and made my transition to the rehab, and then transition to home. It was like 3 transitions, and transitions can be extremely difficult because it's a change, and a change can always be scary. Change can always be scary, but I made it through. And so that's my experience. Oh, needless to say, let me not forget this. Needless to say, so after getting home, I want to say about 3 years later, when I went to see a neurologist, the neurologist told me, which the neurologist is a spinal cord doctor, doctors who deal with spinal cord. The neurologist told me that, no, you do not have transverse myelitis. You had a stroke in your spinal cord. That's another transition I have to deal with. So imagine dealing with being told you have transverse myelitis. This is what you're living with for 3 years, and then they're telling you, oh, no. You don't have transverse myelitis. You had a stroke in your spinal cord. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy the way, for one, it's crazy the way the body works. Because I know doctors do not know everything. The body is such a, complex. Yeah. It's such a complex situation when it comes to spinal cords and trying to fix it or navigate what could possibly be the illness. It's very difficult. And so, with that being said, I had to get used to a lot of changes in my life and a lot of transitions in my life. I had to get used to that because I knew that living like this, that's just kind of what happens. Things can change within an instance. They can change in any moment, and you just don't know. And so going through all that I went through, being in rehab, being in the ICU, and then going to rehab, and then going home, I felt like that's something I had to go through. I needed to go through that. I had to go through that because it was helping me adjust to my situation. It was helping me prepare for my life, you know, prepare for the life I was going to live. And transitions are bound to happen in life. They do happen. And when they happen, you're not always prepared, but you definitely have to be open to doing so, because if you don't make the transition, you'll stay stuck. And staying stuck is not something that I wanted to happen. Even though I feel like I was kind of stuck, every time a transition presented itself, I knew I had to do it. I was forced into it. I couldn't have stayed at the rehab. I couldn't have stayed in ICU. These are things I could not have done. So I had to make these transitions, and with life forcing me to do that, it was just preparing me for today and for my future. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. That is my story of all of my transitions: ICU, rehab, and home. And so I hope you all enjoyed this story. I hope you all can take something away from this story. I hope you like, share, and subscribe. And most importantly, I hope you all feel inspired. So I'll see you in the